Hello, and welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, rate, review, and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We want to hear your thoughts on the movies and shows we review.
Leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or our YouTube channel, and we will read them during the show.
Or reach out to us on social media. We love talking all things entertainment and pop culture with you.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you. Hello, Ashley.
Hello, hello, hello.
BlinkTwice if you're in danger. All right, I'm really excited. We are going to talk about Zoë Kravitz directorial debut, BlinkTwice, starring her former fiance, Channing Tatum. This movie is an hour and 42 minutes, rated R. It is a thriller and suspense. It was released August 23rd, 2024. Here's a quick summary. Tech billionaire Slater King invites waitress Frida to join him and his friends on an island vacation. As the nights blend into sun-soaked days, the guest suspects something is off. Frida seeks to uncover the truth and make it out alive. Dun, dun, dun! Here's the cast. We have Naomi Arki as Frida, Channing Tatum as Slater, Aaliyah Shawkat as Jess, Christian Slater as Vic, Simon Rex as Cody, Ardria Arjona as Sarah, Haley Joel Eisman as Tom, Liz Carabelle Sierra as Camilla, Levon Hawk as Lucas, True Millen as Heather. And I gotta highlight the legends, freaking Gina Davis as Stacy and Kyle McCullen as Rich. Here's some ratings. We have Rotten Tomatoes, 75% critics, 71% audience, and Google users gave this film 70%. Ashley, what's your grade for BlinkTwice?
My grade for BlinkTwice, I'll have to give it like a B plus. I enjoyed this film. I said at the teaser of our episode last week that I was hesitant to watch it because I had heard like, oh, it gets crazy. You have a black female lead, so I hate seeing black women in danger. Didn't know what was going to happen, so I was anxious. But I ended up thinking the movie was actually pretty well done in terms of the thriller and suspense portions of it and just what inevitably the conclusion and everything, the wrap up was. So I enjoyed the ride because it was a ride. And I thought Channing Tatum in particular, stepping outside of himself in any roles I've seen him play to date, was satisfying. So yes. I will give this a B plus. What about you?
We are on the same page. I gave this film a B plus as well. I loved it. There are certain things about the plot that we'll get into, but it was fun. It was beautiful, beautifully shot. I felt like I was on this ride and I was ready for the dips and spins and turns. Yeah, it was well done. And we'll get into this as well. I think this was pretty impressive for Zoe's first film. And she had a stellar cast. I was like, is that Christian Slater? Gina Davis? Like, what? Who do you think was calling in favors? I think she has enough friends in Hollywood, but you think her dad has something to do with it?
I don't think she probably needs any additional favors at this point. I think she's probably well connected enough. She grew up in this industry of Hollyweird, so I'm sure she has her own arsenal and network at this point. And she's not new to, the acting world whatsoever. So
no, she's not. She is Catwoman, for goodness sakes, right?
At least the latest version.
Yep. All right, Ashley, let's get into our spoiler alert. We meet Frida, a nail artist who, quote, is just trying to figure it all out because, quote, she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing, end quote. We see her on the toilet looking at her phone like most red-blooded Americans. Okay. What cracked me up was one of the first video in her doom scrolling was Lenny Kravitz working out in leather pants. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't even catch it,
I
but
was like, oh, I love this Easter
how
egg
on
so
the
much.
nose. Yeah.
So much. She comes across Slater King's video, an interview about him making an apology, giving up his seat as CEO and taking some time owning an island where he is essentially decompressing and trying to, you know, how wealthy, powerful people do when they get in trouble. They try to show that they are doing normal people's things as some form of restitution. As I mentioned, she's trying to figure out her life. Her and her roommate are catering one of his events, one of his fundraisers, but she surprises her friend with a dress. They have a red dress and blue dress. They go out, they mingle. Did you think they blend in well? Because for me, I felt like they still stuck out pretty badly.
There was nothing about them to me that said blend in this world of like high
Yes.
society, you know. Even their walk, everything was very, very different than it seemed
Loud.
like the people that were around.
Yeah. I like to say Frida and Slater had a meet cute. She slips and falls flat on her face and he helps her up. What did you think about their initial interaction, Ashley?
I thought he came across as like charming and like very down to earth, which was a little bit unsettling because I didn't know what to expect from his character. I was like, oh, he seems sweet. He seems personable. You know, there was no bodyguard coming to say, yo, 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 get away from him, anything like that. And he, you know, took it upon himself to kind of guide her in and take the time out of his, I mean, time is money, busy networking schedule, whatever it is he's doing, to actually talk to her and engage with her. Okay.
Yeah, he seemed really engaged in a way that made me question, frankly, what is it about her that he is just so taken with? It's so funny because Justin Sylvester, one of our favorite entertainment analysts, he would always say that rich people, because they have access to so many things, they like to collect people. And so I was like, I wonder what is it about her that he wants for his collection in some ways, you know? He goes and introduce Frida and Jess to his friends. So we have Cody, Vic, Heather, Camilla, Stan, Tom, Lucas, and Sarah. Sarah from the bat came off as a bit of a hater to me. Did you catch those vibes?
I don't know if I would say hater so much as like,
Competition?
yeah, like a little bit of a rival in terms of the social dynamics.
Speaking of social dynamics, what did you think about this motley crew?
Bunch of rich white bros. That's what I was thinking. Like,
Tech bros, right?
and what is the adjacency? Like, what do they all do that feeds
Right.
into
Yep.
what Channing's character does? Because, you know, all of that is very vague. Even what his apology was very vague. We don't know what has happened.
Exactly. They just
So,
said like an overreach of power. It was very unclear. But because we live in today's world, I feel like they kind of wanted us to lean into what we understand, what could have happened. Because I'm like, wealthy man getting in trouble. Oh, what could it be? 9 times out of 10, him being an ass, more likely to a woman, but it was bad enough for him to get ousted, so, or having to take a step down. They have a good time. He asked Frida and Jess if they want to go to his island, and they said, yeah. I will say this, Ashley. I felt like Frida was a pick me.
she definitely
Did you
came
get
across
those vibes?
as fangirl. I mean, even more than
I
pick me, she came across as a fan.
She's a fan. She's a fan. She's a fan. Me appropriating the hit "Not Like Us" by Kendrick Lamar. I mean, going as far as he doesn't eat meat, so she takes the meat off her plate. I'm like, sis, what are we doing? This is embarrassing. I think it's really interesting. And this plays into the thriller aspect of this movie. The repetition of items and acts were used in this movie to highlight that something was off. Where's this doggone lighter? Why don't we have more than one? You know what I mean? There was a knife that showed up multiple times. The drinks were suspicious to me because, Zoe decided as the director to highlight every time somebody was poured up. You know what I mean? The groundkeepers were giving major Get Out vibe. And the perfume, I say the perfume because we see it. She decides to put it on. But if you notice, Slater's always saying, "Ooh, you smell good. Ooh, you smell good." And her, Frida, being so willing to please this man, she puts it on. But what was really odd for me the most is when the older lady who worked on the grounds walked up to Frida like she knew her and was like, "Red Rabbit." What the F is a red rabbit, Ashley,
Yeah,
at
it
this
was
point?
weird. It was weird. She was sinister. It came across as
Yes.
like sinister. And are you gonna do something? Are you gonna hurt her? Or like it was very off-putting. And then it was like, why is everybody here seem like they can't speak English? What secrets
No
are being
one
held
said
here that no one's
anything.
speaking English around here?
Exactly. Exactly. Jess was the only logical one that really asked questions like, don't you think it's odd that they have the same clothes for everyone to wear? There's several lines that stood out to me throughout this film, but this one had me cracking up. She was like, "I don't think it's weird. It's rich." Like, how often do we do that as a society? We just let wealthy people and their quote unquote eccentricities let them get away with murder. Essentially.
Yeah, because why is everything white? And why every day are we wearing
Yes.
white bikinis and
Yes.
the exact same outfits and
It's
and
giving
almost
ritualistic.
it definitely like sacrificial lamb type thing or faux innocence, right? Like let me
Yes.
wear white to disguise the darkness again because we already know it's a thriller, the tone, everything feels sinister to me. I'm like, what is actually good? Because nothing feels right. And why did y'all come to this man's random island where nobody can hear you scream? Is this Epstein Island? What are we
You are
doing?
coming to this island, you give up your phone, so there's no way to communicate.
It was a lot of trust. You think about it, it was like it was a lot of
Yes.
trust for a stranger that you would never give someone who did not have that level of financial freedom or power.
Exactly. And speaking of trust and feeling like something's off, Stacy, played by Gina Davis, pretty much reminded Slater, "Oh, the generator isn't working. So at night, they are just dealing with candlelight." Like, that's creepy. Like, what do you mean there's no lights? You're dealing with candles. And then there was something about the chair. I don't know what that represents. And we can talk about that more towards the end as well. I think it's interesting the Slater character, in his way of trying to connect with Frida, he asks, like, "Do you go to therapy?" And she was like, "No, I don't believe in it." She's like, "It's self-indulgent bullshit." I cackled when she said that. I think it's interesting because I feel like this is one of the first pieces of art that, like, I don't want to say it weaponized therapy, but Slater definitely used it as a weapon, I felt like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's psychologically thrilling in that way, where it's about manipulation. It's about controlling
Yes.
people in a
Yep.
way that I don't know. I don't want to say I don't feel like therapy is that. I don't think therapy is that, but it
Yes.
everything could be used for evil if you try.
That is so true. And for the most part, that first night when they're on the island, it just felt like a normal, like, "Oh, welcome Camilla to the King's tech empire because she has an app." So it's like, "Oh, people are doing their thing and they must know each other and we're having a great time," right? But I have never in my life heard anybody tell a person before taking drugs to set their intentions, Ashley.
I mean, that seems very like ayahuasca. We're going on a journey, plant
Yeah.
medicine type vibe, which I think was the intention. Um,
Okay.
I think I had one thing I thought about too with this film is like they take recreational drugs very loosely. And
Yes. Yep. I noticed that as well.
that was something that I feel like all the people who were there did. So I was like, oh, well, maybe that was one of the biggest traps is like, this dependency on drugs and alcohol that I wouldn't say everybody would fall for that trap. I think a lot of people actually would absolutely not want to be drunk and high every single day
With strangers.
with strangers.
How long is this trip, Ashley? Because I feel like day after day after day was going. And I'm like, when are they supposed to go home? I know Frida and Jess are working women. They're not like Slater and presumably everyone else who don't have to work every day to be okay.
Yeah, it was weird. Like once Jess started saying, what's going on? Can't you tell something is off? I'm like, do y'all even have any sense of like time and
Yeah.
how are your lives? Like you got plucked out of your daily life to come here to some random island, what's really good.
So Jess is definitely one of the friends that you need in your life because she kind of literally is like, I need for you to wake up. It's the smell of roses. Like, why are we here? What is going on? Don't you think any of this is weird? I think it's interesting because Frida was like, well, this is the first time I felt seen. I have to say, I had a hard time connecting with Frida's character. As I mentioned, she was giving major fangirl vibes. And, it was a level of desperation of like, hey, look at me, be with me. But I thought it was odd because I'm like, there's a lot of flirting going on, but no real action. You know what I mean? So I'm like, what is this? What is this whole situation? And I think it's significant that just started asking these questions shortly after being bit by a snake. So snakes play a major role in this film. That's what a lot of the people who manage the island, they're out here catching the snakes and killing them. And then while Jess was also highlighting how weird things are, Frida is waking up with dirt under her nails. Like, WTF, Ashley. The next day, everybody goes on as normal. Frida stumbles upon this room full of bags. I was like, what are these bags? And she finds out that the perfume is in them. And in there, she meets the old lady again who gives her a shot of what she later finds out is snake venom. I would have been so pissed, Ashley. I'm like, I know people are on vacation. And again, as you mentioned, the people on this trip are very much, let's have a good time. Let's do the drugs. Let's drink the drinks. But I am not one to be randomly drinking something randomly given to me. Would you have done it, Ashley?
No, that's what I'm saying. They definitely picked the right ones because she didn't even hesitate. She was like, oh, sure, bottoms up, right? Like you just any substance you're finding on this island, you're like, let me go ahead and give this a shot. Let me go ahead and give this a try. Obviously works out, but I would not have been my natural instinct to just grab a bottle from this lady's hands who's been, again, odd and take a swig. So.
And Ashley, one of the telltale signs was a nosebleed, and that helps signal, okay, she's awake or woke, since I want to play into words that they're trying to get rid of. Or shall I say, at the end of a Spike Lee's movie, wake up, wake up. You know which one? I'm do the right thing. Okay. She realized her friend is missing and nobody knows what she's talking about. And when she ran in and found that Jess's room was a storage room, I felt turned around, Ashley. Did this shake you, or was there another place that had you shook?
No, this definitely was weird because how does nobody remember her except for you? You're asking people, hey, Jess, Jess, y'all been passing around her lighter this whole whatever week, however many weeks time has gone by. And now y'all just don't remember her overnight. And then, it felt like she had been vanished. Like she had been, somebody killed her or something. I just was like, oh, something weird. Like if you didn't already know something weird was afoot, then you fully knew something weird was afoot. Because I know we ain't been hallucinating as audience members, and I didn't get the sense. Like it didn't feel like Sixth Sense ish, where no one was talking to Jess but her. It wasn't that situation. So I was like,
Right.
this isn't right.
I agree. Frida got a chance to run into Sarah. She's essentially awakened as well. They make a plan to get their phones because their phones are locked up. They are the worst actors on this planet, Ashley. Like, I'm like, if y'all get caught, I'm going to be so upset. Frida goes to try to find the phones. There's no service, so that plan is pointless. But she managed to find a picture of herself with longer hair. I'm like, what is going on? Ashley, in her conversation with Sarah, the most disturbing revelation was that they realized they were on a plane with a bunch of dudes that they did not know.
Yeah, I think everybody had been under the assumption that the other ladies were a part of like the crew, essentially, to some extent. Little did they know that, yeah, none of them knew them. They all just hopped on their little private jet, unbeknownst to them, sacrificial lambs for the slaughter.
I almost wonder if it's like a commentary of like girls who get flued out to like Dubai or whatever, not knowing these men. But oh, they got money and they got the resources to fly me out. Let's do whatever they want. And it's like, you don't know these people. I think it's interesting because with them being, woke, they're not partaking in the libations as everyone else. They're also not putting on the perfume. Slater's starting to notice. I was terrified for them, okay, when they were at that dinner and we finally get an idea of the debauchery that actually went on with them forgetting. How did you feel when you found out what actually was going on when the girls were in their drug state?
Oh my God, I was appalled. I was like, this is, again, not, I can't say I had an idea of what was happening, but I didn't expect it to be like tied up, raping them
Yeah.
every night or what have you. And for it to be like, oh, do whatever you want, because the more traumatic it is, the more they forget about it. So like I feel like, even the film only gave us a glimpse possibly of what
Yeah.
the torture was that they went through, and to see that the guys were, it kind of reminded me of Westworld, if anybody's ever seen that show, and how the robots were treated so horribly by the people because they were robots and they thought they could just do whatever they wanted to them. That's what this reminded me of. They were treating them so inhumanely, because they would forget. I was like, how are you, a human being, capable of doing this to another human being just because they won't have a memory of it the next day? Like, it was disturbing, deeply, deeply disturbing, to have to watch and to understand that that was the whole reason for them bringing them there. Like,
because that was
test out
one of
this
my
theory.
question is like, what do you think their motivations were? Because like in some ways, again, are they playing into this whole conversation of wealthy people just being bored and they just do weird shit just because they can? Like, I guess
I think
I'm
different
curious on your
people.
thoughts.
I think different people had different motivations. Not to cut you off, because the Haley Joel Osment character, I think his was about insecurity. Based on some of the comments he made, he didn't feel like he would be worthy of these women in real life scenarios. So he enjoyed the power he got from being able to do this to them when they were incapable of stopping him. You even had the character who Sarah, who liked Sarah,
kept calling her babe or something like that.
And that was also a power dynamic where I don't think she would have given him any mind if she were not in that state,
Yeah.
So I think different people had different motivations, because, obviously Channing Tatum's character, he can have any woman he wants. He's doing this for his own sick, allegedly therapeutic reasons.
Yep. Sarah and Frida also managed to wake up the other women, and the other women had no chill whatsoever. And in some ways, their reaction probably makes more sense, because it's like, wait, what have you been doing to me this whole time? Literally, they went ham, but they were also the first to go, unfortunately. But it gets gruesome and deadly real quick, to where it pretty much ends with Slater and Frida and Sarah. And even then, Slater's like, So everyone's dead. We can still have some fun. So he didn't even care about his friends. He didn't even care about his friends.
Well, he said that Frida was essentially his best friend. So if that's his best
Yes.
friend, what does that tell you?
Whew. It was the fact that she was there before for me,
Mm.
Ashley.
I
And
needed way
that
more backstory.
me too, because I'm like, how did y'all meet initially? And what was it about him letting her go? But for whatever, her subconscious still managed to obsess over him. That's the part where once we had like these open revelations, like what is it still within her that's so attracted to this man?
Yeah. Again, I needed more. I needed
And
better understanding.
honestly, it also explained her behavior because I felt like she was borderline insane for this man. Like when I said she was a pygmy, that was me being nice. That was
She
me
had
being
been
like,
brainwashed. She was a little puppet.
yes, exactly. She was like his little puppet. And I'm like, I know those strings don't go that far, do they? And again, he managed to get her back to him and he was like elated. He was elated. We find out what happened to Christian Slater's character's Pinky. It was her
Mm-hmm.
all along, as it should have been. But then it also made me wonder, like, if she was okay in general, because she hit her head, got that marking on her face, but then she was drugged too. So it's like, who's the real Frida? That is my question.
I don't know if she knows after the drugs and stuff that has been in her, run through her. I don't know if she knows.
Slater's character has his big villain speech that says, you know, why am I doing it? Because forgiveness is not real. And he continues to say, I'm sorry, very loudly for about a minute and ends with, there's no forgiveness, but there is forgetting. Do you feel like there's some validity to that statement?
There is for extreme trauma. I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are insane things that happen. For instance, this whole scenario. That yes, there is no forgiveness for, nor should there be. But for the victims of the trauma, I get the idea of forgiveness not being there, but forgetting being a balm that can help them move on and move forward with their lives. But the ways in which he was going about it, again, was creating extreme trauma. So he is not, if he had been a victim, he is no longer a victim. He is a villain. And I don't know if he could tell the difference anymore.
That is so freaking true. The movie ends with the house being set on fire and Frida going back to get that man. And when she was sitting out in front of that house with him on her lap, unconscious next to Sarah, I'm like, what are we doing here? Because it reminded me of Knives Out, the second one. Janelle Monáe was the last one standing practically in front of a burning house. But at the very end, Frida had Slater drugged up, forgetting stuff, and she was the new CEO of Keen Tech. All right, Ashley, I have some final questions to ask you. One, what did you think about the ending? We can start there.
Yeah, I mean, I questioned it at first because I was like, first of all, what happened to Sarah? Second, is this wise? Is there any way that he could come back to himself and then do something to hurt you? Like, I had a lot of things going through my head, but inevitably, that's not what we're supposed to worry about. It was supposed to be a successful revenge story. And one of the articles I read after I watched it said, you know, she had said at the beginning of the movie, her mother talked about success being the ultimate revenge. So for her, she didn't want to
Yeah.
be with him. She wanted to be him. And that is what she
Yeah.
was able to do. She became him, attained the
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle he had, is in full power and control. So that is satisfying
Mm-hmm.
as a conclusion to the film.
I mentioned that she was there before. She was Red Rabbit because of her nail art. The grounds lady looked at her, was like, I know you. There you are. I've been looking for you. I don't know if you know that reference, Ashley. It's from the book you just finished. um, she was Red Rabbit. And you really see it when you watch the movie, like again, the recognition in that woman's face when she sees Frida for the first time. I do want to know what happened to Sarah. Would have loved to know. I wanted to have seen more Sarah doing more badass stuff because she apparently was on the Hot Babe survival show, right? Like it would have been nice to have seen a little bit more of that. I guess we got a little bit of that with her shooting people and stuff like that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I could have done with more. Was there anything that you wanted to see more out of this film?
Again, more backstory.
Yes.
Once you find out that she's been there before, they know each other. Like I'm like, oh, I need a lot more. I need a lot more. I need you to better understand how she got out the first time. Where did Jess come into play with all this? Was she there before too? Um, I just needed more on the unraveling of the history between them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, Channing had a great performance, but I kind of would like to have seen a few, I don't know, flashbacks to things that had happened with him as well to better understand his character a little bit. Like he alludes
Like
to
if
some
he might have
abuse.
changed or something.
Yeah, I mean, he alludes to like some abuse, but I just feel like I need a
Yeah,
better setup to the monster he has become.
I agree.
Um,
But I'm glad that you brought that up because that was actually one of my questions as well. Because did you feel like he played the role well? One,
yes.
two, I did. I think he did too because I felt like there was this underlying sinisterness about him. You know what I mean? That he tried to hide over, hide under charm, but it just was like a darkness
Yeah, because
to
I
it.
think we've never seen Channing play a character like this. So, especially
True.
at the start of the movie, he is Channing, right?
Yes.
He seems sweet. He seems like a little bit shy. He seems like, charming. And you just, like, I was waiting for that switch. I was waiting to see the transformation and the transition. And it wasn't stark or as brutal as some other people's have been. It was subtle,
Hmm.
but to me, it
Hmm.
makes sense because of the type of villain he is. He's a subtle villain.
Yep.
And what he's doing to you is subtle. And it's, again, I don't know if how much he can separate the reality of the trauma he's causing versus the good it seems like he thinks he may be doing.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
that's weird as a character to try to play.
I agree. Did you notice when Frida and Jess in the beginning of the movie decide to crash the fundraiser? She was like red or blue. I immediately thought about the Matrix with the red pill versus the blue pill. And I just went as far as to look it up. So I guess the red pill represents a character to see past the illusion of the Matrix. So it represents critical thinking and science. And then the blue pill represents the character return to the illusion of the matrix. So it represents the path of simple belief and emotional decision making. I'm trying to think if I can see that represented between Frida and Jess. I can't say I can. I think Frida ultimately got the red dress because she's the main character. But I don't know if she in some ways, she did see past the Matrix when she woke up, but just woke up before she did. So, I don't know. Were there any other movie comparisons that came to mind for you? Any references that was notable too?
Yeah, I mean, again, the main one I thought of was Get Out. I can't say there's anything else that came to me top of mind as I was watching the film, besides just some of the ones that would be dealing with like memory loss, like Memento and some of those types of things where you're kind of trying to unravel reality versus fantasy and all of
Mm-hmm.
that, and what's real and what's not. Those would be the main types of thoughts I had about any movie comparisons.
So for me, I mentioned the second Knives Out movie, obviously Get Out, The Matrix, and then Saltburn came to mind. And I think it's a bit of the eat the rich type of situation, especially at the end, how the main characters get the house essentially. So yeah, my final question, Ashley, is what are your final thoughts on Zoe's debut?
Yeah, like I said, I thought it was really well done. The reviews I was seeing weren't very kind, which I was like, I don't know if people are just tough critics because that's what critics do. But I was like, to me, this was not. It felt like people were like, "Oh, you're only touching the surface. You need to go deeper." It's a thriller. Every thriller does not have some deep
Yeah.
existential message that it's trying to impart. I think it has a message for sure, and it leaves questions for people to kind of be able to answer on their own or what have you. But I thought it was a good first effort from Zoe for sure. I thought the cast was great. I thought
Yep.
the build up to the actual chaos was good. So I mean, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I do too. And I was also thinking with the Saltburn comparison, you have that sycophant guest that's coming into the main character's home, right? And again, craziness ensues. I thought Zoe did a great job. I will say, I do feel like if she were a white male, it probably would have been Oscar bait. I do feel like that, but because she's a nepo baby, well, that doesn't mean anything either. I think people were pretty hard on her. Did you think this was worth Channing getting an Oscar nomination?
It depends on who else is nominated. I'd have to see. I'd
Yeah,
have to see.
I think this was a good turn for him to have in his portfolio. I don't think it would have been, but sometimes in movies like this,
I mean, it was a departure. That's
it
for sure.
was. All right, Ashley. If there's nothing else, time for hidden gems.
All right, I have one hidden gem this week. It is a thriller, one could say as well, called Paradise on Hulu. First three episodes are available, maybe even four. I've only watched the first three, but the fourth may have dropped. This is starring Sterling K. Brown and James Marsden. Sterling K. Brown is a Secret Service agent. James Marsden is the President of the United States. And essentially, there is a murder and everybody's trying to figure out what the F has happened. So, this is a reunion between Sterling K. Brown and Dan Fogelman, who was one of the writers of This Is Us. And it is interesting. Again, three episodes in to try to figure out what is happening, why this person was murdered, what's going on. It's also like dystopian future type because the way that the world is, and I don't want to give too much away when you get into the actual series, but it has a lot of elements that I think make for a great series and has some legs behind it. And you put Sterling K. Brown as the lead, and I mean, hello.
I'm so excited.
Um, so I think it's gonna be a good one. So that is my hidden gem for the week, Paradise on Hulu.
That's on my list. I am such a fan of Sterling K. Brown and James Marsden, so I'm definitely gonna add that. Move it up so I can get to it sooner. I have one hidden gem as well. It is a playlist. It is on Apple Music. This playlist is called Africa to the World. It has been a balm to my soul as I it's been very busy at work. It's been busy around all things, personal life, professional, everything. And this playlist is just so fire to me. It's the vibes are there. It's a great compilation of songs. Like the first song on here is called All Over You by Mabel and King Promise, really good. The next song is Make It Up to You by Khalid and Arya Starr, Sensational by DeVito and Chris Brown, Jump by Tyler, Gunna, and Skillabang, Wizkid. Like this whole playlist is just vibes, and I love it. I wanted to share with y'all. So that's all I have for today.
All right, very nice, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us again. Thank you for dealing with probably my little less energy and voice today with still trying to get over my sickness. I hope to be back to 100% by our next episode, but please share this one with everybody you know. We appreciate it. We'll be back, but in the meantime, as always, be blessed.
Bye.